We appreciate you joining us today for our conversation with Idaho Education Association President Layne McInelly. I'm Dave Harbison, the IEA Communications Director, and we come to you today during turbulent times as a result of the COVID-19 public health crisis. Stay with us as we talk about what's happened in Idaho public education over the last month or so and bring you the latest news. Plus, Layne will share some heartwarming stories about IEA members going the extra mile to support their students and their communities, and he'll answer some of the questions that he's been receiving from IEA members. Layne, let's start there. You're in consistent communication with IEA members around the state. What kinds of things are you hearing?
You know, the thing I'm hearing most from educators around the state is they miss their students. They miss the face-to-face interaction, the hands-on learning environments. They miss that light bulb moment when students might be struggling with a concept for a while and they finally got it. They're also telling me that they're doing their very best under these difficult circumstances. They're implementing online instruction and emergency learning opportunities, but it's just no substitute for that classroom learning environment. They're also letting me know how concerned they are for their students who might have food insecurities or for their students that receive special education services.
So what has the COVID-19 public health crisis demonstrated or exposed about Idaho's public education system, and what are the lessons that can be learned from our recent experience?
So on a positive note, it's reinforced what we already know. We have dedicated educators around the state who are willing and able to go that extra mile to make sure their students are receiving the necessary services. They have stepped in and worked with their district to make sure that food services are staying open. They've turned on a dime to implement alternative instruction, contacting parents and students and sharing all sorts of online resources. Now, on the flip side, it's brought to the forefront some of the shortcomings of Idaho's public education. One of the biggest ones that we know is our healthcare service providers, our nurses in our buildings. We don't have enough nurses to make sure that all of our staff and our students stay healthy. Many schools lack the resources to even provide basic care during this emergency situation. We also know that school facilities around the state are often outdated and they lack insufficient ability to take care of our students. We've also been ringing the alarm bell for quite a while now about the social and emotional health of our students. We are woefully short on counselors and school psychologists around the state. And the few buildings that do have school counselors and psychologists are spread way too thin and oftentimes assigned to other duties. The other thing that it's brought to the forefront is that our classified staff, they're undervalued and they're underpaid. These educators are an integral part of our education system. They put many hours into professional development to be able to do the job that they do.
Without question, all the things that you just stated are true. The obvious follow-up question then is, what are the solutions, or how do we find solutions?
So some of the solutions are already in the works, but we need to keep pushing until we get the outcomes we want. For example, the K-12 task force recently included among its core recommendations increased training for social and emotional issues of our students. And the legislature, they approved that funding to help provide teachers the tools and resources they need to deal with the students that have social and emotional issues. Now, some of the other solutions like school medical professionals and better pay for our classified staff, that's things that we're going to need to work on. Educators have been aware of this problem for quite some time, but with this health crisis bringing it to the forefront, hopefully we can have collaborative conversations with the general public, our legislators and policymakers to find solutions and answers that will benefit our students and our communities.
Layne, let's backtrack to about mid-March, which seems like it was a long time ago, but maybe it really wasn't in the big picture of things. But even before the governor came out with his stay-at-home order, and even before the State Board of Education came out with the soft closure announcement, the IEA had come out publicly and recommended that schools be closed in the midst of the public health crisis. Why did the IEA take that step?
You know, we took that stance because we were looking out for the health and safety of our students and our educators. We realized that this COVID-19 was highly contagious and we needed to flatten the curve in any way that we could. And the best way was by closing our schools. We had seen what was happening in other states and in other countries, and we wanted Idaho to take a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach.
Let's touch on a slightly different topic, and that is education funding. Governor Little has already come out and said that there will be a 1% holdback for all public agencies within the state. That certainly includes public education in K through 12. We also know that there's going to be some kind of shortfall in funding when schools open up again in the fall and into the next school year. But on the other hand, we also know that there's federal stimulus money coming in to help support public education. What's the main takeaway in terms of education funding right now?
So from a statewide perspective, the 1% holdback equates to about $19 million. However, the federal stimulus funds that is going to be infused into Idaho is about $48 million for Idaho's public K-12 budgets. We also know that districts are seeing some savings by having their school buildings closed. So there's really no reason any district should even consider any drastic budget cutting measures. We don't know exactly what the budget shortfall will look like for next year, although we can safely assume that there will be some sort of drop off. We also know that districts around the state have about $300 million in reserve funds. This can vary greatly district by district, but many districts have reserves that far exceed the recommended percentage. Now, these reserve funds are typically called emergency or rainy day funds. They're set aside for exactly this purpose. If a massive public health crisis isn't an emergency, I really don't know what is.
That's a fair point. In closing, Layne, what else would you like students and parents, patrons and professional educators to know as we all try and work through this crisis together in new ways? What would you like them to know?
I want students and parents and patrons to know just how proud I am of the work they're doing during this crisis to ensure the safety and the well-being of our students and our youth are being taken care of. I'm amazed at the flexibility of our educators to figure out innovative ways to connect with their students and help them during this emergency learning. I know we'll get through this. I also know that educators and students around the state cannot wait for the day that they get to go back into their classrooms together.
Well, hopefully that is very soon. Layne, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.